So the basic mechanics, right? Yeah, mechanics of this. Again, we're still keeping with the 1/2 inch square construct, so 2 1/2 inches square, 3 1/2 inch starting material. What I've done is I've thrown a little bevel on either end. That's probably, I don't know, 3/4, 5/8, 3/4 long, somewhere around about that. Which should give me enough length so that when it folds at the corners there.
Can we show them a side view just so they can see
sure.
how that's like it's like one of those little pink pencil erasers. Just make sure to put those bevels on opposite sides. There you go.
And this is kind of really down and dirty collar making. I don't know how long this stretched out to. It's probably about 4 inches by the time I'm done. Yeah, look at that. Boom. Absolutely spot on. And of course, because you're doing a chisel point on either end, it is going to double in length in the material that you pick. So don't get overexcited and start squishing a 1/2 inch material, because that sucker's going to wind up to be about 1 inch long. Go ahead, find my center line. That's not bad, that's almost 1/2 inch in the middle there. Yeah, that's awesome. That was completely by fluke. So that's given me 1 3/4 at either side and a 1/2 inch in the middle. So I'm going to mark that. This is going to be my fold line. So as it folds here, it's going to elongate, or it's going to shorten around this corner. So as it folds up, you got to add that extra material for the corners, which is going to be half your material thickness for every corner that you fold. So this is 1/4 inch thick. So what I'm getting is the addition of here 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. And 1/8. So 1/4, half on top of my 3 1/2. On top of my 3 inches. So 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. If I was going for thicker material, obviously I'd change that. So if I was collaring with, say, 1/2 inch material, each corner would be an addition of 1/4 inch. So I'd actually add an extra inch to the collar. But in this particular situation, that'd be quite ridiculous. If you wanted to be really fancy and like build up square corners on your collars and all those kinds of things, you got a whole other situation to go ahead of, and I'm going to leave you to do the math on that yourself. So I like to put a little crease mark with a chisel. Don't get overexcited and put a really sharp cut in there, because when you fold it, it will damage the material. It could in fact crack it. So just be aware of that. I'm just putting a little bump on either side there. So as I come in, I'm going to go into the vise with my hot material. It's going to go in here, pre-prep that width, about there, and then fold it. Okay? The other one should give me a good position for the fold on the other. Hopefully it will all go well. Actually, I laid that up wrong, because my second fold is a progressive fold. So I actually have to fold the top line. I know this sounds ridiculous, but if I fold at this line, because of how it's being clamped, it's going to progress into this, so I'm going to lose an 1/8 inch in here. So I have to go to this low line and get that 1/8 inch to come out of my long leg, and then when I fold it on the block, the 1/2 inch block, I want to fold it again in a progressive manner. So what you're actually doing, and how you fold your collar can really change how your legs align.
I wish I still had that.
So if I did upper line, I would wind up with this leg a 1/4 inch shorter than this leg, which, if I wanted to change my fold position, is absolutely applicable. But I don't want to change my fold position. So make sure you're not doing a goofy thing. Going to the top line, going to the top line, and that will fold this way. So, in fact, what I'm doing is starting with my collar like this. Center line is here. My crease line is here and here. And what I want to do is fold upwards and then fold upwards. Right? And that hopefully will give us two legs that have both been progressed equally by 1/8 of an inch, so that they're staying at about the same length. All being well. Also be careful as you fold not to get overexcited and beat it to death and actually narrow the thickness of your material, and elongate your collar as well, because that's another thing you can do.
Ulu, that's not a good spot for you, buddy. Come here. Come on. Good boy. Come on out of the way. Good job, buds.
He wants to be helpful.
He does want to be helpful.
A little bit of a forward lean to lock myself in the right position. Don't be in a rush. Make sure it's square. And fold. Keep your fold at the vise rather than out here, so I'm actually trying to get it to fold at that corner. That's pretty good. And when you look at it from above, you can tell that it's folded square because it's stayed true. If you had a little bit of an angle to it, fold out, it'd be leaning like this rather than true like that. Don't overfold it. Your vice jaw are generally crested, so they're coming downwards. If you overfold it, when you fold up the two pieces, they're going to be kind of opposing inwards a little bit, which can cause you some problems, especially when you go into the next step. Because my next position, this is kind of a whole bunch of really goofy basic jig setup. My next position, I want to be this way, with a block in it like that, but it also needs to be supported on the underside so that when I clamp it up, it doesn't drop down and I wind up with the fold in the wrong place. So I've now got to shim up a whole bunch of nonsense over here whilst this thing goes. So I've got a 1/4 inch as my width spacer. I want a little bit of upward space as well. I'm just grabbing a whole pile of gubbins from over here. It's good to have little blocks of steel kicking around in different thicknesses. So over on the press, we use these as depth gauges for when we're using top tools and that kind of thing. But they get really, really handy on this kind of stuff because I can do a real fast shimming setup. There we go. So that puts me a little high. I don't really want to quite be that high, so I'll pull that one out. So you see how it's just got a little bit of top line showing for the fold. That means that I'm going to have the back of the material is going to be slightly below my fold. So this will be on the underside, which puts me about there. And then I've got a little bit of support on that corner for the fold itself. So that should be okay. Make sure that your vise will close appropriately on your spacer block. That looks okay. Spacing looks fair there. I'd like that to be back just a touch. And that way I can push down on it. And that block there will work quite nicely as a buck. Alright. As always, blacksmithing is far easier when you have a friend assisting you. That's why we were given apprentices, right? But you can do it all by yourself if you have to. Gentle cinch. Give it a little push down. Fiddly bottom down. Close it up. Right, so, all being well, I should have a nicely formed collar with both legs about the same length. That's not bad. Gained a little bit on one side than the other, but that's okay. Watch out for your shims getting overheated. They can get a little exciting. So, that will now get folded up. To create my collar, I've got to reset all my shim work here, and my combination I think was that. Yeah, that looks about right. So what I'm looking for in my block alignment here is that as it closes up, I get to here, that underside is supported, so I want to be able to push down to it. My two pieces of material sit here and here. It locks in good and solid, and I have sufficient to fold. I wouldn't mind that actually being a little bit deeper, so I'm going to try flopping this one on its side. Yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, I mean, those could be slightly better aligned, but it'll work. Okay. Now, when you do these things, if you find, test. If you find that your spacing isn't what you want it to be, add a little bit more material to it. This is folding up okay. I feel like I could do with an extra 1/8 of an inch, maybe even a 1/4 inch to really get a good lap over on the top. But we'll see how this will fold. So always test. And often, you'll see beautiful pieces done by different smiths out there, and you see the final thing. What you don't see is the giant pile of experiments and tests and calculations that we do in order to get to the final thing. A number of folks I speak to, and they're like, man, how did you get that so pretty? It wasn't my first one. So, if you're going out there and you're making this thing one off, one time, and you expect perfection, you're kind of cheating yourself out of reality. Alright, so, get the material all lined up. My hammer, my push bar. Right, that should be good. Don't be in a rush, you can always put it back in the fire. Give it a little bit of a cinch. Really lock it down. Bother trying to push that aggressively and keep the opposite side torch on. The loo you'll probably want to leave right now. Thank
you. The one thing in the shop he's afraid of.
should have truthfully probably left that little bit more height than I've got. That'll be alright. If you don't want to overcook your vise, you can actually lift it out, heat it up, then drop it back down. Get the real tool for this job. It's funny how many times you've got the real tool, but it's over there, just out of reach, so you might wind up kind of ad hocing things and that would work perfectly well. Basically, for your visual reference, it's the same thing. This one just has a wooden hole in it. Anyway, so there you go, collaring. You'll see here I've got a little bit of tooth texture from the vise. If you don't want that to appear, put yourself a set of soft jaws on here, or mild steel jaws. Take off the steel ones. The tooth on this particular jaw has almost worn off, so it's not that aggressive. But that's a thing you can think about. For what we mostly use that vise for is kind of holding railroad spikes whilst they get twisted. So we're not too worried about it. But my leg vise over there and the Miami vise, those two both have pretty clean, soft jaws on them. Anyway, that is collaring. I'll leave you to Jazz and show you jaw vices.
So these are pretty soft. And do you want to real quick just show them that the little bronze soft jaws that you made?
These are pretty great. So it's just a little bit of sheet metal. I used bronze because it's what I had kicking around that day. And the other one's somewhere buried. And if you need something a little bit more protective, that's a really good way to do it. So then you can just lock them up. And it will reduce that marring on the surface. Obviously, these have a lifespan because every time you close it, they get compressed ever so slightly. So just be aware that you will have to replace them. I recommend minimum 16th inch material. Don't go any thinner than that, so 16 gauge. And if you really can get away with it, something more in the 1/8 inch plus range would be good. So, there you go.